Welcome to DigiVision's 2030 training on producing microcontent in a team. I'm Kai Weaver from the University of Southeastern Finland, and this video focuses on the best practices of microcontent creation. What is microcontent? And would this video be microcontent? Well, yes and no. This best practices video is a standalone piece of microcontent focused on a single topic with a clear goal. However, in the Moodle companion course, Producing Microcontent in a Team, this video is stacked together with other microcontent to create a section called How to Create Microcontent. That is a coherent whole that has a clear goal, helping people to understand how to create microcontent and support others in creating content too. It understands the need of the target audience. There are videos, texts, meaningful assignments, images, and a degree of interactivity. There's also links to open educational resources, scientific articles, which contain both surface and also deeper knowledge. And finally, the section Ask Questions and answers them. So yes, this video is an example of microcontent, but it's really an example of a fragmented piece of microcontent, which only really comes to life when it's stacked together in a larger whole. There's still plenty of top tips for you though in this video, so keep on listening. First, with all educational content, you want to start by inspiring the learner. We start by trying to spark the learner's curiosity and ignite their desire to learn more about your topic. This can be done by being positive, enthusiastic, and let your passion and your love of your subject that you're producing shine through. But rest assured, you don't need to be a positive people person if that's not who you are. Just let your personality show through, try to relax, and don't be too stiff. Think about what is special about your microcontent or your topic. What is special about you? What attracts you to producing this content for others? Why are you motivated to do this? Think about it, and this can help you understand what you can offer to the learner, and let this shine through in the content you're producing. You'll also want to provide learners with additional material to quench their thirst for knowledge. It can be so easy to just produce content and be done with it, but instead, think about what other material might help to support the learner in their learning journey. Reference lists can be quite dull and boring, so reflect upon what material exists out there already and how you can find organic ways to include it within your microcontent or microcourse. For example, are there some influencers on social media who are popularizing knowledge about your subject? Are there some great podcasts to follow? What are some open access scientific journals which publish on your topic? And if there aren't such channels or popular places, why not encourage your learners to create them or create them yourself? It's really important when you're speaking to your listeners and to your learners to use the active voice. This is especially important with online or commercial courses. Don't be mistaken in thinking that you should be super stiff or scientific when you are speaking to the learner. Don't put on a monotone voice that speaks like this. Even with things like course instructions and interactions, these can be written in the active voice. It's a great way to help the learner feel included on their learning journey. So instead of saying things like, the instructor for this course is Kai Weaver, and he graduated from the University of Darmstadt, instead say, I'm Kai, and my background is in feminist pedagogy. Speak to the learner directly. Instead of this course introduces, say, we'll learn about, or you'll learn how to. Be human and be present. Don't be afraid, as I've said before, of letting your personality shine through into your content. And with that said, it is absolutely okay to use AI and other similar artificial intelligence tools. For example, you might use Copilot to help you write and plan your script. You might review your language with Grammarly. But remember, this can make the content or language feel somewhat artificial. I personally prefer to listen to flawed language because it's more natural and it's easier to listen to. If you're listening to something or reading something which is grammatically correct, but lacking personality, somehow I find this harder to digest. And this is what AI can do to your text. Next, when you're producing courses, especially if they are online self-study material or autonomous courses, or when you're not present with the learner at all times, you really need to explain everything. Do not assume that the learner knows anything about the topic which you haven't explained, unless you are completely aware of their prior knowledge. If you use a concept for the first time, unpack it and explain the concept. For example, if you say climate crisis, explain what you mean. If you claim that due to the climate crisis, companies are challenged to reduce their energy consumption, you might need to open this up a little bit and explain, why is this a problem? Why could this be an opportunity? What is energy consumption? Why do they need to reduce their energy consumption? What is the climate crisis? These might seem very self-evident, but they might not be self-evident for everybody. You also might explain how the green transition can offer new possibilities for businesses. But unless you explain how, why, what, where, and when, it's gonna leave some people up the river without a paddle. In other words, they have no idea what is going on. Even if you're producing material for social media, don't be afraid to include references and evidence in your comment section or at the end of a video. And as a sideline, all the references for this video can be found on our Moodle Companion course. Remember that the learner might be unable or unwilling to ask questions, so you need to anticipate what they might ask as you produce your content and your course material. A good way to think about this is creating multiple pathways. What do I mean by this? Well, if you start to create multiple learning pathways, you explain something one way with text, then you might add a video where you explain it from a different angle. You let the learner find different ways of reaching the learning goal. In this way, you can assemble multiple pieces of micro-content together to create a coherent entity where there are many different learning pathways, because you don't want your learner to become stuck. Because if they become stuck, they might not be able to ask questions, or they might not want to ask questions, even if they could. When you're recording audio and video, before you even get started with the recording, write your speech down in a document or on paper and write it down word for word. Use clear language and natural expressions when you're writing. Don't write complex text. It can be so tempting to write very flowery things on paper. And then when it comes to the recording situation, you can't get the words out of your mouth in the same order or with the same tone that you had on paper. Be natural, be human, be present. Use clear language. Writing a script takes time and effort. Don't just write it and hit the record button because something will go wrong. I say this from years of experience. When I don't write a script, or when I write a script and don't rehearse it, everything goes horribly, horribly wrong. So write a script, read it aloud, edit the script. Read the text aloud again, edit the script. Read the text aloud once more and edit it again. And remember that you can also add notes for yourself and directions in the script. You're probably the only person reading the script. So if you want to remember to smile or frown at some particular point of the video, then write it in. If you need to remember to keep your hands where you can see them and not have them floating around, write it down. And remember, if you're recording a video or a podcast, this is not necessarily a live situation, especially true with open educational resources or micro-content. You're going to be able to hit that pause button. Give yourself a few moments to compose yourself and redo what you're saying. There's not a need to be nervous when you're speaking, so just relax. It will be okay. And remember, try to be as natural as possible and as prepared as possible. Next, we move on to some assignments. Here are some of the best and worst practices for assignments. Some of the best practices for assignments are reflection questions that tie the content to other material or make links with the learner's life experience. Concluding quizzes are very useful. They often act as a summary to wrap up a section, but make sure they aren't just copy and pasted text, resulting in true or false answers. Include a variety of different assessment types, not just a quiz, but add in a reflection exercise as well and take them together. And remember that the assignments don't always have to be intellectual. You can include things that are fun or emotional or social. For example, in a course on climate change, you might ask your students to assemble a playlist of songs which address climate change. If you're doing a course on feminist agency and activism over the years, why not include some feminist empowerment music? You can get them to assemble playlists of songs and share with each other. You can get them to do discussions. You can also get them to create poems by literally cutting up the reading or reassembling the words in the document. There are so many different types of assessments that you can use. Try to think outside of the box and try to avoid things that are just too simple. You want to add a little bit of an element of challenge here. Avoid also assessments and assignments that require many different software tools. For example, you might require the learner to make a series of social media posts on the topic. But what if that learner doesn't have a social media account? Is it a good practice to ask them to make an account? No, it's not. Consider their privacy and think about what is reasonable to expect of them. If you're on a platform like Moodle, try to find plugins that help you keep everything on the platform. It can be really frustrating as a learner to have to go up and sign up for a new tool or new website in order to complete an assignment when you just want to finish the course. These are very, very small things that create little barriers to learning, and you want to avoid as many of these as possible. And don't forget to include a place to return the assignment. Assignments which involve go off into the world and do this, but there's no place to return it, will likely mean that the learner won't actually do it. Returning an assignment is in itself a meaningful act. Be very, very clear when you're writing instructions for assignments. Get someone from your target audience to read your assignments through, because there's nothing worse for a learner. Well, there might be, but in this example, nothing worse for a learner than spending 20 minutes trying to understand a poorly written assignment, which then only takes 30 seconds to do afterwards. Keep it simple, explain your assignment in the simplest possible way, and don't be afraid to explain it twice. Finally, it's really important to consider how your material looks, and I am fully aware of the irony here when I have such bland slides. Try to avoid overloaded slides and try to avoid death by PowerPoint. It can be really, really tempting to write all of your text on PowerPoint so that the learner doesn't have to listen to you. But this is really off-putting, and having lots of text on slides is really off-putting as well. If you're using images and diagrams, don't forget the accessibility requirements. They are not a chore, they are there to help and empower all learners. Don't forget to add your alternative text to images, and don't forget to explain what's on the image itself. And that's it. These have been some of the best practices of creating micro-content. We hope that this video is useful for you and that you can share your own ideas, either on the Moodle course or in the comments below. Thank you.